I'm Jenna Eastwood Hill, the Teaching and Learning Librarian here at the Oppenheimer Library. Let's talk about evaluating online sources and websites, okay? So one of the first questions, why do we need to do it? Well, you want to make sure while you are becoming a professional in your field that the information that you are using to do your research, the information that you are finding is accurate and reliable, right? So if you're becoming a professional, you're becoming an information creator, you're going to be someone who knows about this topic, right? So it's important that you know the information accurately. So you want to be able to evaluate the sources that you're getting your information from, okay? One of the ways that I like to describe this evaluation process is just understanding the context, right? So if you think about context, we can find the context by looking at a few different things, right? Who's the author? Who wrote this? What do they know about the topic? Or what perspective might they have? So, knowing who wrote it, right, and a little bit about them, knowing what their background is, do they have an education in this? Maybe they just have a lot of experience in this. All of that is valid, right? But understanding what that knowledge is can help you build that context. And then what perspective might they have? Where are they from? How old are they? What's their demographic? And that kind of helps you understand the perspective of what you might be reading, okay? The other things you can look at are date. Date is important, right? So when was this written? What was going on then? And have things changed, right? We saw this drastically in 2020. If you're reading an article that's talking about like education practices that's from before 2020, you might need to, double check and see if there's something more recent, because we know a lot of things changed, especially with education after the pandemic, and so much went online, okay? So understanding the date, when was this written, or when was this published, when was this posted, things like that will also help you understand the context, okay? And then looking at the source. Where was this published, right? Is this a blog? Is this a social media post? Is this like a news article that's online? Is this a government website? Where was it published? And then why was it published, right? So again, going back to the peer-reviewed articles, those are published kind of just to add to the body of scholarly literature, right? If you want to be fancy about it, it's just adding on to the research that exists. But you can look at these other types of online resources and understand, what was the reason behind it being published. Is it informational? Is it persuasive, etc.? Why was it published? Okay? So I'm going to give you an example of when and why you might use resources online and not just scholarly articles. So let's say we are writing a paper on urban gardening, right? And you found some scholarly material that you want to use, but you also want to connect it to maybe something that's going on in the community or something that's happening now, right? So we can do a Google search for the same search terms that we've been looking at. Okay, and let's go a little bit further and say we want to connect it to urban gardening in Little Rock, okay? So here's our list of results, and let's go through and kind of get some context and figure out which of these sources we could use, right? So we start scrolling through. This one is called Little Rock Urban Farming. Maybe some of these you've heard of before. That would be a good place to start because you already have a little bit of context for them. You can see that this one says it's an urban gardening educational resource. Okay, so there's lots of information here. Here's the City of North Little Rock, which is a government website, and it's talking about a community garden program. You could use that. It is, coming from a government website. You could use information from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock website about our campus garden. You can see, of course, it's our university, but that .edu means that it's coming from a school, okay? So there's other, information here, but that's how I would start looking at this. So if you want to choose a spot to start, let's start with the Dunbar Garden, okay? So what do we see, right? What can we find? Okay, they've been around since 1992, but are they still active? How do we figure that out? So we can scroll through, kind of figure out, see if we can get any other dates here. And I'm not seeing any other dates just right here on the main page. So we could go through and figure out what else we could find about this website, right? Okay. So another way, if you're looking at something like this to figure out, okay, if I want to, talk about the Dunbar Garden, maybe I want to get in contact with somebody, are they still active? You can always go to their social media, okay? And look here, see, when was the last time they posted? Okay, so this was 6 days ago. All of these things are helping to give you context for the information that you're looking at. Okay, so we found all the sources that we want here in Little Rock. So let's just do a general urban gardening search because we want a little bit more information on how urban gardens are impacting other communities, or we want other information about urban gardening, okay? So you can kind of scroll through here as well. We're seeing just, basic information about urban gardening. So let's see what else we can find. Okay, here's a master class, which maybe you've heard of master class and you have some context for the fact that they bring in professionals on different topics. So maybe we can go there and see, what they have to say, or if they are connected to someone else. All right, so this is an interesting article. We could find information here. And it looks like this one is being taught by someone named Ron Finley. So we could go then and figure out, okay, well, who's Ron Finley? What does he do? All right, and now we have information about him, right? And so we can continue on. And what we're doing is building this context for what this information is, where this information came from, okay? So like I said before, looking for things on who wrote this and where did this information come from, what is this person's expertise. You can do a little bit of deep diving, trying to figure out why do we know about this, right? All of that will help you to evaluate those online resources that you might want to use for your papers, okay? If you need any help, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help.